Dun, 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 dun. Your body language speaks to me. Everyone knows that song, right? So, like, a singer can come and just change the lyrics and sing something else, but it's the same beat. It's a parody. Do you understand? So parodies of Lisbeth is maybe there's something she does, maybe a way she talks, do not make it worse. Like when someone does parodies of you, it's really funny. When maybe you say exactly a lot, I'll be like, if it's this person now, she just say exactly, and she now do her finger like this. It's funny, yeah? And you notice that parodies will make you feel more human. You just laugh about it too and stuff like that. Hello, what's up with you? So have you heard any Novels and Bits listener right now, including myself, it's going to go by Niba. That's Nimba community, Niba. And what inspired it is the fact that K-pop communities name their groups, like name their fandom. And, some YouTubers and all that do the same thing. I talked about this in the last episode when I and my guests were conversing. So Niba is our community name. Novels and Bits listener, that's what it means, Niba. It's really cool, right? The coinage. Well, if you don't think it's cool, it's okay. That's fair too. Okay, really excited about today's story. Like, there is so much to get out of today's story. Even out of all the stories we've done, the lessons are so packed. Like, it would be so cool if you reached out to me and said, from this other story, this thing really stood out for me, and it felt like it helped, gave me a direction and all that. Because for me, like the last story we did, the affair, that story taught me, I said it before and I'm saying it again, it taught me that there is nothing I can't forgive, especially when maybe you think that cheating is the worst thing that can happen and stuff like that. No. And then I happened to see a post on Dang, like Diary Niger Girls community. I'm part of her community on Instagram and Twitter and all. And it was a really teary post. And this woman went through so much. And you can just see her making the most of that very difficult situation where she had a husband who had a mistress for like decades. And befriend a mistress and try to raise her kids and learn a business. And it was just also amazing. So, I mean, Nadia wasn't in such a very terrible situation, but definitely it's not less terrible. Come on. I'm not one of those people who's like, there are people in worse situations now. Nah, every pain is pain. Big. Let's call it what it is. So, now that we've gotten that riff out of the way, let's quite get into today's story. So, today's story is Behind Closed Doors by Bettina Cran. It's a historical fiction. This time it's set in the 16th century. The two historical fictions we've done on this podcast, I think it's only two. I think they were both set in the 19th century. Like when we did Duchess Wall and The Girl Who Stepped Into the Past, we're both 19th century, but today is only 16th century, specifically the year 1576, and across two countries, Stockholm and England. This was also during the era of Queen Elizabeth Tudor. You've heard of Tudors, right? The Tudors. I think that was a series on it. I didn't watch it, but Queen Elizabeth Tudor ruled without a king. So it's an interesting time in history, and, she had so many oppositions against her. Without further ado, let's get into the story. So the story begins in Stockholm in the year 1576. The King of Sweden entrusted an important task to Rugar, Count of Elta. He was sending him to carry his greetings to the English court. In other words, Rugar would go to England as an ambassador of Stockholm to charm the English court and improve the relations between Sweden and England. Essentially, ambassador duties, you get, improve our relations and all. Rugar was the right man for the job because in all of Stockholm, no one could rival his warrior and courtier skills. It was a great opportunity to win laurels from the king and become wealthier if he succeeded, and it was also a great opportunity to teach the English a lesson. So essentially, if he does well on this mission, definitely the king would reward him with more titles, more money, lands, and things like that. And also, he wanted to teach the English a lesson because look at what happened. When Rugar was young, he went to England with his father. His father had been the ambassador then, but the English made fun of his father and the people of Sweden. They thought of them as barbarians and rough. The incident broke his father's spirit. The man was never the same again until his death. It was also during their time at the English court that Rugar lost his virginity at 12 years old to one of the queen's ladies. He was defenseless against her. The ordeal made him think of the ladies of court as cheap and without morals. It was because of Rugar's experience at the English court that he learned to be the perfect gentleman and utterly charming, because he wanted to return to the English court someday and teach them to respect Sweden. He didn't expect them to love his country. but at least respect. Since it was the king's command, Rugar and his best friend Baron Ton Sigurd, they made preparations and soon settled for England. Ton, I pronounce his name Ton because I don't know how to pronounce Torgne, so I'm choosing to silence the J. Maybe I'll check out the pronunciation, maybe not. Around that same time that they had sent over Rugar, all right, start going to England and win them over. Around that same time, 18-year-old Corrie Huntington, she was about to be taken under Queen Elizabeth's wings. It happened that Elizabeth was visiting the countryside for the summer and was stopping by estates. One of those estates belonged to the Earl of Strafford, Jack Huntington, who was Corrie's father, Corrie for short. Jack hated the fact that Elizabeth came with plenty of entourage, and all of them were demanding food for servants to attend to them and entertainment. It's a kind of large party that if one person sponsored for too long, especially a landlord, because essentially all these earls and co, they're landlords. If you sponsor that kind of company, the Queen and co, you will go broke for months. And that's not the worst part. The worst part was that the Queen wanted to take Corrie as she's going. So he was just pouring out his heart to his wife in their bed chambers. That is meant to be private though, but Corrie was eavesdropping, like their first daughter. She'd learned that skill over the years, because if she hadn't, she would never learn anything of the world beyond what her tutors taught her and what she read in books. It was Corrie's greatest dream to explore the world. Her father protected her too much from it. She wanted to experience the wonders of the world that she'd read about. So to her, she saw it as a miracle when the Queen and her entourage came to their estate. Corrie had been so surprised when Elizabeth talked to her, like imagine a whole queen talking to you that is 18, and invited her to play a game of chess with her. Her parents had asked her, play the vaginal for them. The vaginal is supposed to be an instrument. See, I'm going to confirm what it is. And perform recitations in Latin from the writings of Seneca, known to be one of the Queen's favorite works. So Corrie was doing all those things, and it impressed the Queen, and the Queen was like, invited her to dine with her and her ladies. She praised Corrie's accomplishments. Corrie was like, I have accomplishments. Oh my God. She was on cloud 9. And so she felt really good about Elizabeth, they get. And at that moment, she was still eavesdropping on her father, pouring out his heart to his wife. Like, why does the Queen want Corrie? And all of that. A large company of people came to Jack's bedchambers. They were led by the Queen. She asked her company to give them privacy. And then she spoke privately to Jack and his countess. So Elizabeth was probably in her 40s or so. It wasn't specified. She was tall and slender, had red hair that was thinning, brown eyes, and she was charismatic. I mean, she's a powerful aristocrat. So Elizabeth wanted to take Corrie back to court with her, but Jack said she was too tender to go. An 18-year-old. Mary, Jack's wife, she didn't like the idea either of Corrie going to court. So Corrie had been their only child for 10 years before they had twin girls who were currently 9 years old. They had discouraged those who came to seek her hand in marriage, and it was hard for the couple to let their first child go on any account. Like Corrie, they're too sentimentally attached to their firstborn. So Elizabeth was like, I'm going to take care of Corrie's future. I'll find a suitable husband for her. And honestly, when a queen offers, like Elizabeth is offering, it's not really an offer. You're supposed to agree. But Jack turned down Elizabeth's offer, saying, I'll take care of my daughter's future myself. Corrie couldn't believe that her father was turning down such a grand opportunity for her, because she's eavesdropping, right? Mary, on the other hand, she was afraid that her husband was standing up to the Queen. Like, if this lady changed it for us, we're in trouble. So she had to just chip in. That's when she suggested, why don't we send for Corrie to ask her directly what she wants? So hearing that sending for her, from the place she was eavesdropping, Corrie just hurried, she now hurried to take the stairs so she can come up the right way to her parents' bedchamber. So while Corrie was coming up to meet them, she's not eavesdropping right now, the Queen's defenses fell, and she just admitted to Jack and Mary that, see, being a leader and a queen, the responsibility, it weighs too heavily on me. That all I want from Corrie is peace of mind and companionship. That girl brings me that. I'm just asking that you loan her to me just for a little time. So now, Corrie was very pretty. She was dark-haired with ivory skin and green eyes. Her face was heart-shaped. Her lips were lush. Just picture a beautiful seductress, like all those manga girls. But this one lacks the seductress aura. In place of it was innocence. They asked her plainly if she wanted to go to court. Karina was like, yes. Her father was like, court is not good though. How's those morals though? The people there will wrong you. They will use you for power, for this, for that. And she said, I want to go like that. Is there anywhere that wrongdoing does not happen? So giving up, Jack finally replied that it would cost him a fortune to get her wardrobe for court ready, that she should have to wait a few weeks before going. So it turned out that the clothes her father prepared for her were mostly white, white and black. But that wasn't the problem. The necklines were to her throats, and they were all too modest, as if it was designed for a nun. Her father was trying his best to make a statement to the courtiers. Corina is off limits. That's what he was trying to say. The thing vexed Corrie. So at court, Corina's schedule was always packed. From morning until nighttime, there was always something to do, and it was structured. There was reading and translating in the morning, riding in the park in the afternoon, spending time with the queen and her other ladies. Oftentimes, the queen would invite her to watch her, like, pass judgments, sorts issues of people who came to the palace seeking her wisdom and leadership, statecraft stuff. So for religious enthusiasts, it's good to know that the reign of Queen Elizabeth coincided with the time of John Knox. I mean, I heard of John Knox even before I knew that Queen Elizabeth and his time were the same time. He was a religious reformist, and Mary Queen of Scotland was afraid of John Knox's prayers. But the thing about John Knox is, like many men of those times, he saw the fact that a woman ruling was unnatural. I think that was also why Mary Queen of Scotland hated him, because she was a ruler in her own right. She didn't rule with a king. Same with Queen Elizabeth. She wasn't ruling with a king. So John Knox regarded things like that, like unnatural, that the woman needed to have a man over her and things like that. So it didn't help that women leaders in those times did some despicable things to prove him all the more right. I feel like they did that because they just had to make a statement like, we can be as tough as men. But regardless, it's still no excuse. They could be quite mean. You get. So Queen Elizabeth banned him, John Knox, from English soil for as long as she was queen. And she lived for many years. I think Queen Elizabeth lived till at least 60s or so. I'll have to confirm that in the next episode. So sometime after Corrie came to court, she was involved in an incident with one of the men. The man didn't mean to get involved with her in any way, like one of the gentlemen. Everybody knew Corina is a queen's pet and they should best keep their distance from her. But she didn't understand why no one ever asked her to dance or talk freely with her like they did with other ladies. She didn't know that the queen had given 10 instructions that everybody stay clear of Corina, like especially the men, and they get. Even the women were not that friendly to her. So on the day of the incident that this thing happened, Corina was spending some precious time alone at the garden, and she lost track of time. And then she needed to hurry to the chapel for the evening prayers, or vespers as they call it, especially considering she was the one who kept Elizabeth's prayer book. Keeping the queen's prayer book. Wow. So she lost her way out of the garden because it's like a big garden, and then she stumbled on Sir Christopher Layton and another gentleman. Sir Christopher Layton is the gentleman that she put in trouble. So she and Sir Christopher ran together for her to make it to vespers. However, as they arrived there, Elizabeth cast a withering look in Christopher's direction as though he was the one that caused Corina to be late. And then by the next day, he was gone from court. She exiled him to an estate for some time. The others at court, who were already barely associated with Corrie, they avoided her further and they spoke in whispers behind her back. Corrie thought that part of the reason they're also talking bad of her was because of the fact that her gowns looked like a nun's gowns, courtesy of her dad. But the truth was different. And at the meantime, Corrie was at least grateful that the queen was her steady companion and best friend at court. Like, Corrie is like the queen's baby. Do you get? Like, the person the queen could have been if she didn't have all those responsibilities on her. That sweet, innocent, just given to studies, scholarly, and things like that. So to Corrie, Elizabeth could do no wrong, and she was a wonder. She idolized her and the fact that she spoke 7 languages, memorized all the classics, the scriptures and more. The evening after the incident, Elizabeth introduced Corrie to Anne Bosworth. Like this day was the day that the Christopher Layton incident happened. The following evening, they were introducing Corrie. Elizabeth was introducing Corrie to her cousin, Anne Bosworth. Anne was the daughter of Jack's elder brother, Uncle Henry. Like, Corrie's uncle's daughter. That's Anne. So he was a very conservative man, this Uncle Henry guy, like Anne's dad, and he wasn't on good terms with Corrie's father, Jack. So the cousins shared a resemblance, but Anne was blonde and hazel-eyed. Also, Corrie's dark-haired and green-eyed. Anne is blonde, hazel-eyed. Also, she wore red velvet, not white. Anne was dismissive of Corrie at first. She didn't like her, but only at first. You see, Anne had been looking forward to getting some action from Sir Christopher, but he was sent packing because of Corrie. So Anne's itch, we know that itch, would remain unscratched. Anne wasn't unashamed to admit this to Corrie, whose eyes went wide in amazement. She hadn't experienced this side of court since she arrived now. Everybody was censoring her as like, small girl. But it's not Anne that will come and start corrupting her small. Also, since Anne arrived at court, she'd only been hearing praises for Corina. That's another reason why she didn't like her cousin at first. They say, oh, Corina can play the vagina like an angel. Oh, she beats Elizabeth at chess. Oh, she recites the classical masters by heart. She knows Latin, Italian, French. She's just so beautiful and pure. Anne was jealous, obviously. When they're praising somebody like this, you'd be like, I hate that girl already. She's just too perfect. I mean, anyone who's perfect is just the target to be hated. It was magnified when she met Anne, like when Corina met Anne, and she was like, oh, this girl is truly cool. Yeah, she has this whole air of innocence, and at the same time, in as much as she grew up in the country, not in London or anything, she doesn't come off as this country bumpkin. She's like just this kind of sweet, like her disposition is nice, her moods, you just want to be around that kind of person. And then concerning Anne's age, because obviously now she mentioned this into Corrie was like, why don't you just remarry? That's when Anne told her that no one dared approach Elizabeth's ladies because she guarded their virtues jealously. After Anne's husband passed away when she was just 22 years old, she came to court hoping to remarry. But Elizabeth claimed Anne as one of her own and started scaring men who came too close to her way. She did the same thing to any prospect of her ladies. So actual history would reveals actually, that monarchs from that time, like the 15th, 16th century, they did that sort of thing. They just jealously wanted the devotion of, certain persons, like their inner court people, their court ladies or whatever. And then they'll refuse for them to court or marry people. So Anne speculated that Elizabeth kept them from marriage because she herself couldn't remarry. And she wanted company in her misery. Like, Anne is so blunt. Ha! And it's refreshing. So after that revelation, Corrie's admiration for court life dimmed considerably. She also understood that, that's why they sent Sir Christopher away, because it seemed like it was coming onto me, and Queen Elizabeth wouldn't have that. No wonder everybody's mad at me. Okay. So Anne tried not to like Corrie or be friends with her because she tries to give the girl arm's length. But Corrie knew there are things to learn from her cousin, her wizened, worldly cousin Anne. So she persisted. She was like, I promise you that I'm utterly trustworthy, Anne. I would never betray you to the Queen. Just like anything the Queen tells me, I'll never tell you. You get? So they're like, okay, you seem cool. And trust me now, Corrie's life in court switched up with Anne in it. She started observing new things. Anne taught her how to know when someone was cheating at cards, how to smuggle extra treats from the palace kitchens. And it was Anne's idea for Corrie to request for her own separate bed chambers, away from the rambunctiousness of the other honor maids. This was granted to her easily. Queen's pet. I just want a private room that I can stay by myself, because staying with the other ladies can be noisy. And Queen's pets, they will not reason it. Get your own private chambers. So, and since she had her own private bed chambers, Anne came over to her room often. She altered two of her gowns to expose cleavage, like remove the high neck and everything now to be more fashionable. Anne wanted to alter more gowns, but Corrie was like, wait for me to get comfortable with these two first. So Anne was like, I want to make a true court lady out of you, Corrie. She taught her how to sneak around and skulk to obtain gossip about someone at court. Corrie knew that, oh my God, Elizabeth, if she ever found out about this, she would hate it. But hey, this is me learning a different part of life, and I love learning. Corrie just saw it as, I'm just learning and it's cool. You get. So normally the Queen went to bed early each night. And like maybe 3 hours or so after she'd gone to bed, her ladies would gather to have an orgy. Essentially, this is not the typical orgy. It's nothing sexual. What they do there is they'll gather in a secret room in their inner wears. They won't wear full clothes. Just, they'll be in various states of undress, maybe just their inner wears, uniform. They'll drink, they'll eat, they'll play music, they'll dance, and then they'll now make parodies of Elizabeth. A parody is an imitation with intentional exaggeration of a specific target or subject for comedic effect. Parodies will employ irony, humor, and satire to mock or criticize the subjects. In our modern world, parodies keep the greatest creators humble. Like, let me just make an instance of parody in normal word English, like in simple English, not this dictionary definition I just gave us. So parodies are like when you take something like, the simplest example that comes to my mind is songs. Like, everybody knows this Chris Brown's Under the Influence. Dun, 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 dun. Your body language speaks to me. Everybody knows that song, right? So, like, a singer can come and just change the lyrics and sing something else, but it's the same beat. It's a parody. Do you understand? So parodies of Elizabeth is maybe there's something she does, maybe a way she talks, they'll not make it worse. Like when someone does parodies of you, it's really funny. When maybe you say exactly a lot, they'll be like, if it's this person now, she just say exactly, and she now do her finger like this. It's funny, yeah? And you notice that parodies will make you feel more human. You just laugh about it too and stuff like that. So they will just make parodies of Elizabeth and everybody just laughing. Do you get? So Corrie got so drunk that she kept laughing uncontrollably as they were doing all those parodies and everything. She was like, oh, now I get why this gathering is called an orgy, because now we get to purge our feelings that are not allowed to show our cuts. It was also through that orgy that Corrie had her first sex education. So the ladies talked about all the positions a woman could be taken. What makes a good and bad kiss? Who are the good and bad kisses at court? And even mentioned examples like, oh, this star is like this. Oh my God, this guy, no. This other guy. Like, they've sampled all the guys in court. These women are shameless. They were so detailed and so thorough. Corrie suddenly felt an itch. That's when she finally understood the itch that Anne was going on about. So Corrie had information overload, and coupled with being drunk, she just passed out on the table. So Anne laid her on the cushions. The next day, she woke up in her bed. How they carried her there, I don't know. She couldn't stop thinking about passion and lovemaking. As touching the Queen, Corrie was like, okay, in as much as we made fun of her last night, that even the fun just like, even the making fun of her revealed to me that this woman is lonely. She doesn't really have true friends. And, you know, she's always having to deal with her affairs of state, and she's shackled service to her crown. She should have at least one true friend, and I can be that to her, like sweet Corrie. A week later was Queen's Day. Queen's Day is an annual celebration to commemorate Elizabeth's ascension to the throne, and it marked the start of a 3-day tournament. No one at the celebration commanded more attention than Corrie. She launched her low-cut bodysuits, you know, the ones that Anne had remodeled for her. She launched it at that event. That's on the Queen's Day thing. So she felt stares and the Queen's almost disapproving gaze, but she held her own. She's like, see, I'm coming out as a graceful young woman. Nobody here is going to see me as a baby again. That was what was in Corrie's mind. There were 24 knights who were contestants. In the first contest, the knights were to unseat their opponents from their horse with a lance. I mean, we see those. We've definitely seen these tournaments now. Who didn't watch Merlin here? At least in Merlin, it was there. They get those Sir Lancelot, Sir Gawain, all of them. They'll now come and do horse, boom, boom, boom. They now use lance. You know that thing that looks like long javelin, but the end is blunt sharp. So the game they will now unseat. Jesus, that's what they were doing. So the game went on eventfully. It was sweet. Some people were betting until the contestants were down to 6 finalists. That was when Rugar, you know what Rugar Carly said. That's when he now made an entrance. He now joined the game in full white armor, whites. The 6 knights of the Queen that by the finalists were annoyed by this newcomer, and one by one, they started trying to unseat him. But none of them unsat him. Although the last person tried sharp, but it was nothing major. He unsat everybody from their horse. So Corrie just admired, wow, this guy, okay, in as much as, yes, I'm on the Queen's side, though I like all how the Queen's knights, but this guy is shy. He has grace, he has strength, he has power. He has courage. No one had seen his face yet, but they heard his voice when he was like, when obviously he arrived, they're like, who are you? He's like, I'm here to represent God and my master. I know all of them used to say God. So to show off after he won, this guy carried lance that is as thick as what I don't know, maybe 2 times mop stick or 3 times. Am I saying thick time? Like, it's thick. Lance is that thick. This guy carried lance that is big like what I don't know, like 3 branch, and broke on his raised knee. Everybody was hailing, this guy has power, he has strength. He now went to present himself before Elizabeth. And even standing 2 stairs lower than her, he was the same height as her. And Elizabeth is a tall woman. Many of her court men are shorter than her. He removed his helm, and of course, he was breathtaking. Corrie, who was right beside the Queen, caught his attention. And people looking at them like, oh, what are they dressed in white? Oh, like, similar, like, these people could be couple, that kind of thing now. But, so, things like that. And the thing is, you already know that Rugar he's a blonde person. He's blonde, deep blue eyes, light skin. And Corrie's dark hair, green eyes. We just have to keep saying that. Maybe, I feel like someone who can really pass for Corrie is, what's her name? Megan, is it? What's the name of this actress now that Hollywood sexualized so much? Is it Megan Fox, yeah? Like a younger version of Megan Fox, not like, So I will find a younger person and put her there as face of Corrie. So Rugar presented his victory to the Queen. He said, accept this victory, your gracious majesty, as a tribute of my sovereign lord, your devoted admirer, King Johan of Sweden. Oh my God! Elizabeth was surprised because how can he be Sweden when his English is so fluent? So she crowned him with a laurel as a champion of that, the winner of that game. So he introduced himself and his companion, Baron Sigurd. They came with the King of Sweden's letter and with gifts. Elizabeth invited them to her banquet that night. Before leaving, Rugar made a chivalrous move. He went down on one knee. He laid the laurel that the queen had just bestowed on him at Corrie's feet. Corrie was so shocked. In the privacy of their rooms, Ton was like, Rugar, why would you break the lance over your knee like that and hurt yourself? Because Ton was now treating his knee because he really enjoyed himself from that guy he was trying to do. Rugar was sharp pleased that move he made, that masculine macho man move, like it works in his favor because it won the queen's attention. He wanted her attention on him when he beat her pampered champions, like pampered in quotes champions, because he doesn't regard English champions as being strong. They're just, so he's like, I'm going to outdance all of them, I'll try all of them, I'll outfence all these knights, I'll prove to the English court that Swedes are not to be laughed at. So he told Ton in detail what it was like the last time he came to England as a child with his father. His father was a special ambassador then and was sent to seek Elizabeth's hand in marriage for the Prince and heir of Sweden, Eric then. Rugar had come along as part of, let's further your diplomatic education. From the day they arrived, Elizabeth treated his father and the Sweden delegation with contempt. She didn't lodge them in the palace. She kept them waiting in the corridors for her audience, which she never granted, and she mocked their attempts to speak English. She did all this, but she had no qualms accepting their gold and fine horses. She scorned his father because he couldn't dance. When they returned to Sweden, King Eric was mad that Rugar's father failed, and he banished him from court. When Eric's anger finally cooled down, the damage had been done to Rugar's father's pride and spirit. The man withdrew from life and died from a broken spirit when Rugar was only 15 years. Rugar's mother was already dead though, long before. Rugar didn't have any siblings. So from the age of 15, he was on his own. Concerning the girl, he laid laurels at her feet. He was just physically attracted to her because, come on, Corrie is fine. But she's just merely part of his revenge plan. It's not like he felt a simmering attraction to her or anything. And that's one thing I like about the story. He's just, this is a fine girl. She's next to Elizabeth's side. I could start my revenge from her. Full stop. Do you get? And we know that day too, Corrie is wearing her first revealing gown. But he doesn't know it's the first time she's wearing it now. So he's like, all these English women, all of them are loose. I'll sleep with Tasha and punish and I'll sleep with all of Elizabeth's women. I'll show Elizabeth Pepe. That was his plan. So meanwhile, Corrie on her own now, innocent Corrie was like, oh my God, he laid laurels at my feet. Oh God, I felt something special between me and that Swede. I was like, gosh, nah. Swedes, yes, they're natural fighters, but they're clumsy at everything else. Like that, that idea that they have of Swedes now, like that they're barbarians. That look at, if you want desirable men, look at their rank. The Italians are the most desirable. Then the Spanish men. Then the Frenchmen. Englishmen, so they're like number 4. Then the Germans, at least the English are better than Germans, who is number 5. Then lastly, the worst men, the Swedes. Corrie was like, she defended Rugar, that he's honorable and gallant. I'm pretty sure he must be good at other things, you understand? But she's like, in Corrie's mind, she's like, why am I even arguing with my cousin? She knows better than me, than all these things. Then at the banquets, the banquet that held that night now, Rugar and the Sweden delegates, they presented gifts that were so extra. They presented deer, white deer, and with the sleigh. Deer and sleigh that they used to show that Father Christmas used to carry. So they presented beautiful fabrics that had, like, the way they described this thing, extra, roll the thing on the floor like carpet, had star on it, all this thing. They presented chests of gold and silver that look like snowflakes. They're coming from a cold land. Sweden is really cold. It's an Iceland and all that. Golden goblets. And then Rugar's speech. This man is good with words. Just wind Elizabeth's head like this. Wind Elizabeth's head. If Elizabeth were a younger woman, she would have blushed. But regardless, she was so impressed. And she's like, oh my God. Okay, Revel's master, you have making sound arrangements. Let Rugar be seated at my table. Okay, there is this podcast I used to listen to. That's how I even know what Revel's master means. Today, it's basically like, it's more than the MC of a show. It's like the person who's in charge of planning an entire event. That's the Revel's master. He plans everybody's sitting arrangements, who's going to entertain whatever that night and stuff like that. So he's literally in charge of everything entertainment. And it's a serious job. Like, there was this podcast I listened to, This Job is History. I think they finished that season 1. I'm waiting for them to start season 2. Like, they talk about jobs that are extinct and how those jobs, like, what have replaced those jobs today. It's so fun. This Job is History podcast. It's so fun. It's the only podcast my little cousin of 9 years old likes. Is she 9 or 11? I think she's 11 now. Yeah, it's the only like you see, it's the only podcast on my library that you see likes, because it's really interesting. So that's it. So she just asked that reverse master guy, have Rugar sit on my table. Then she also promised to write a letter to the king of Sweden the next day, obviously, to praise like this guy he sent now, he's already succeeded, just like that. So as fate would have it, Corrie and Anne, they were seated across from Rugar at the table. Without realizing what she was doing, Corrie came across to Rugar as, expressing a bold physical interest in him. So he's like, this girl is going to be my first conquest. No lie. She's going to be my first conquest. He knew that Elizabeth's most precious commodity, considering her age and everything, is her lady's loyalty to her. So Rugar's plan essentially is to woo her ladies and seduce their loyalties, like seduce the ladies' loyalties now from Elizabeth. That's what will pain her. Do you get to do something that will pain Elizabeth? So when it came to dancing, Rugar shocked everyone. By God, he could rival an Italian dance master. Remember that Italians are the best men on the list now, the top ones. So this Rugar is as good as them. He danced with Elizabeth. He was so charming that somehow after the dance, he made Elizabeth, like just from his sweet talk and everything. Elizabeth did not know when she introduced. Alright, this much she knew, because come on, she's an aristocrat. But in as much as she knew, she's like, this guy backed me into a corner. Like, oh, this is Corrie Hot 10, my word. And however, the queen asked to just go one of her nights and was like, see, tell Rugar, let him know that Corrie is forbidden. Let him know now. So Rugar was warned, but instead of it scaring him off from Corrie, he was like, I'm going to have Corrie now all the more because she's Queen Elizabeth's favorite. So he asked Corrie to dance, but here was the catch. Just like Rugar's father, Corrie can dance. So her father had given up trying to teach her how to dance after 2 attempts, and since she came to court, no one had dared to ask her because they were afraid of Elizabeth. So she remained unlearned when it came to dancing. So their dance was terrible because Corrie kept bumping into him. So she confessed to him that I can't dance because no one had asked me to dance before. Obviously, he didn't believe her. He thought it was her ploy to appear innocent and endear herself to him. She had to hurriedly explain, see, I'm new at court and I've been so busy with the queen's duties, that's why I didn't learn. He's like, okay, let me teach you. She's like, yes, teach me. So the way she's, that kind of scenario, he just felt, this girl, she's inviting me to do things. So he managed to drag her, to draw her into a passage and around the corner for their lessons. Instead of the official count, because his count's Rugar. Yeah, she's like, don't call me Count, just call me by my name, Rugar Carlson. Corrie was like, okay, at home, they call me Corrie, Then he was like, if you're in my home country, you might be called Carrie. So the moment was slow and sensual. Next thing they were dancing, was lifting her up. Next thing sliding her down his body. Next thing was kissing her. So it was Corrie's first kiss. After they broke from the kiss, scholarly Corrie, instead of her to wonder wow, I got kissed. Based on the sex education she had the other night now, she's now started analyzing the kiss. Is this a good kiss or a bad kiss? From the way she was frowning and lowering her eyes, the guy was like, oh my God, is she like analyzing if I kiss right in front of me? His male pride was stunk. He was like, God, that's a standard kiss. Come on. Okay, you know what? She needs a stronger sample. So he grabbed her and kissed her more thoroughly. So they were both so caught up in the kiss, but thankfully, it was Anne calling for Corrie that broke them apart. And Ton happened to arrive at the scene too, since he'd been looking for Rugar as well. So Rugar introduced Corrie to Ton. See, this is Corrie, my new friend. And Corrie was like, oh, this is my friend. This is my cousin Anne. So Ton could sense the sweetness in Corrie. He liked her. Anybody can sense that Corrie's innocent. She just had that aura. But then when he looked at Anne, he instantly judged her, like Ton. And why he disapproved of Anne is because she was wearing a revealing Italian bodice, and Anne had this worldly aura. I thought Anne has a dirty mouth. Like, if you read this book, Anne has a very dirty mouth. I can't say most of the things Anne says verbatim on this podcast, since this podcast is rated clean. So the queen was looking for both Rugar and Corrie for different reasons. That night in Corrie's room, she told Anne all about the kissing experience with Rugar. Like, oh my God, he kissed well. So as she was talking about it, Anne was like, you're making me miss my late husband. So Corrie has both high EQ and IQ. I mean, it's rare, but she has it. So she was like, oh, what was your husband like? And Anne was like, actually, that guy was a rake and gambler. He slept with women, died before me. But as soon as he set his eyes on me, he decided, he wants to marry me. And when I went to him, I was so young and green. But from their first night together, he gave her his heart. So he'd never been in love before her either. Just like she was his first love, he was her first love. And they were happy together for 3 years before he died. That's sad. Just 3 years. And Anne is currently 25, so she's been without a husband for like 3 years. Do you get? So that same night in the Swedish ambassador's new apartment, Rugar was regaling Ton with stories of how sweet Corrie felt in his arms when he kissed her. Ton told Rugar, Rugar that was bragging, this girl shy kissed her, or that girl is sweet. Ton was like, please, I heard about this girl from the court. That girl, she keeps Elizabeth's prayer book. She's part of her library. She speaks 3 languages. She's an heiress. She can play the vagina like an angel. And most importantly, she's a maid. A maid simply means she's a virgin. Rugar couldn't believe this last part, because how could anyone in Elizabeth's court have morals, right? After his encounter with sex when he was 12 at Elizabeth's court, Rugar kept himself from women until he was 17. And that was because Ton was forced a woman on encouraging Maya now, see this fine girl, she likes you too now, and that was on Rugar's father's estate. And the years following that, Rugar was catching up, so now felt guilty that I'm the one that brought out the bad side of this guy. At the time of this story, Rugar was 27 years old. Like if you compare, he's 27, Corrie's 18, so they're 9 years apart difference. And because of his experience at losing his innocence in the way he did, he made it a point not to sleep with virgins. Because he felt they're always experienced and willing women everywhere. So why do I have to do a virgin, right? But here's the thing. In as much as I'm telling him Corrie is a virgin, stay away early, he's like, she can't be. Come on. Do you see the aura she's bringing out? She was even analyzing my kiss. Come on, she can't be. But when he finds out, how will he find out? So he'll find out in the next episode. And honestly, this story is a lot. I know I said this about many stories, but they're really a lot, because they're several pages long. I think the story, if it's a full novel, hardcover, is 600 pages long. But on laptop, it's because I read it on my laptop, it's 300 pages long. And yeah, it's really that long. We're not even up to 100 pages yet, but I would normally, from part B, I tend to summarize more often. So thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll see you on Thursday. But hey, just one thing. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell someone about the podcast. That's all. Thank you. God bless you. I appreciate you listening to Novels and Bits. Never. Bye.